I know that voice. I'm about to meet John Lydon, whose other self, Johnny Rotten, the anarchist and antichrist of 1976, no one can forget. The snarling, the sneering, the youthful arrogance, etc. How must it feel to be trapped in that eternally congested, etc., to live in the black and white moralistic headline world, not just for the few months he found it exciting to be an anarchist, but forever. Who would have thought the national anthem could even be an issue in the 1970s, let alone a controversy? It was just a meaningless relic left over from Victorianism, wasn't it? God save the Queen. No, bugger off, you silly old bag. What a fantastic idea. And here's the guy who thought of it.
Oh, wow, it's much more uncomfortable.
He seems not at all scary, kind of friendly.
Oh, no, thanks, dear.
And here he is in his 20s, the perfect embodiment of the Johnny Rotten as Destroyer act, with Destroyer t-shirt to match. The Sex Pistols are supposed to not be able to play their own instruments, not be able to carry a tune or write a song. But all that is seen here to be clearly totally untrue. No song was ever better than Pretty Vacant, with its nihilistic, even Rambo-esque opening line. There's no point in asking, you'll get no reply. What do you think that album was, the Sex Pistols record? How would you sum it up, what it did?
It's a record put together by young people who weren't really kind of aware of the bigger scheme of things, but didn't give a tuppence flying fuck.
You can see why the song titles on Never Mind the Bollocks, Here's the Sex Pistols, were all reused by Damien Hirst as titles for his artworks. They're about twisted joie de vivre, a holiday in the dead sun of utter blankness, from no feelings to liar, from problems to pretty vacant. Nihilists are against everything that's valued, so that an idea that isn't valued can be noticed. And for the Sex Pistols, as with Nietzsche, that idea was, don't be a slave, take control. I just can't imagine a Muzak version of God Save the Queen played in the Hilton Hotel bar by a lounge pianist. But I can imagine almost anything else in rock reduced to that. And even though I know it's not quite true, I can believe their myth of wanting to destroy the top 10 rather than be in it.
I'm not completely destructive just for the sheer sake of it. I've never done anything to destroy people. I've never done anything to create a bad situation for another human being. Quite the contrary. Amazing, isn't it? Because it's the very thing I'm accused of.
Yeah, you're the destroyer of the Antichrist.
But that's almost a luxurious position to be in.
Yeah, in what way? Why?
Because I could be the devil as Jesus Christ, both at the same time. Now, not many can afford that luxurious seat. People do like to be romantic about everything and do delude themselves. And I think that that's just human nature, and who am I to try and change that? I've tried. It's not worth it. You get dissed for it. You get disrespected. You get seen as being arrogant when you point out mistakes. When in actual fact, I don't think you're arrogant at all.
You're just being realistic.
Yeah.
But people don't really want realism.
No, not at all. They want the fantasy. They want the nonsense. They want to be mollycoddled and led into a cosy belief that everything's fine when it isn't.
You can see him somehow 100 years before punk, being a Zatiste with Rimbaud, who he uncannily resembles in these old photos. Is he still angry or boring?
Oh, anger is always the best energy. Always, always. Use your anger very, very well. It is an excellent, excellent tool. It opens your mind. Hate is not an energy. Hate is a closed door. And self-defeating and very, very self-destructive.
But anger is great.
Oh, yeah. Give me anger.
Well, thank you, John. See you later. Yes, anger as a pose is as boring as any other pose. But when you can believe there's something more to it, it's a pose that's really got something.
Hello. I'd like to thank absolutely no one for nothing.
Quite. What about that earlier Sex Pistol, though? When cultured European travellers in Africa occasionally came across Rimbaud, they'd get a big blast of nihilism from him. He despised his old poetry. He said it was only slops, and he wanted nothing to do with it. And he had nothing but contempt for the new poets in Paris, who he heard now followed his vowel poem literally to the letter. Rimbaud studied geography and science and metallurgy in Africa. He knew dozens of African dialects. He was a well-known local figure, but because of what he was now, a trader, not because of what he'd been, a poet and a weirdo nihilist. In Africa, in the last 12 years of his life, he didn't find happiness exactly, just freedom from constraints. Everything about Europe disgusted him. Darkness, lightning at night, the hyenas outside the city walls, scavenging like they've always done, the markets inside still bustling along. No slaves being sold now, though. In February 1891, Rimbaud was kept up one night by a pain in his leg. It got worse, and he feared it might be bone cancer, which one of his sisters had died from. He had a stretcher made up, and some servants dragged him in agony back up to the coast, the same 200-mile journey he'd made years before. The leg was amputated in France. Rimbaud knew he was dying. He couldn't stand the sight of his mother and his remaining sister, both pious Catholics. He tried to get himself dragged back to Africa, but he died on the way at Marseille, aged only 38.